All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here, of course, for podcast number 31. And this one, we have something very interesting to do.
Yes.
This is very different from usual. This one is going to be about...
7 pearls of wisdom from anime.
Yes, specifically from anime characters that you know
Right.
and love. Some
Yeah.
of them will be very expected. Some of them not so much.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I got to give a shout out to our best buddy Matt on Discord. He's
Yes.
known as Frosted Steel. He's one of our VIP patrons. Dude, you're awesome.
You're
Thank you so much
amazing.
for supporting us. And thanks for letting me bunk with you down in Texas when I went down to Rooster Teeth.
Yes.
That was legit, dude. Appreciate it. All right.
So-
First character in particular.
Yes.
This one's very near and dear to both of our hearts, but particularly Jacob. He's dubbed his
Yes.
nickname as Broskandar.
Broskandar. He is
Yes.
technically Iskandar from Fate Zero, but
Yes.
Broskandar. And he has many amazing quotes, but this one in particular, whatever you do, enjoy it to the fullest. That is the secret of life. We need more stuff like this. We we need to learn this.
Right.
That is one of those things that, especially for me, I sometimes have trouble with because I'll get so focused on trying to do that I'll forget to enjoy.
Right.
So yeah,
It's that very subtle difference between where you do life to the fullest, you live it to the fullest,
Right.
versus actually taking the effort to enjoy it to the
Exactly.
fullest.
Yep.
And a lot of times that takes a little bit of reflection. That's a little bit of a moment where you leave yourself for a second. You remove yourself from yourself, essentially, and you look at your situation and go, "Whoa, live it, life." Just
Yeah.
it's almost this thing where you
Right.
just kind of go, life is amazing. And it's one of those things that it's really tricky because oftentimes when you leave yourself and you look at your situation, your environment, all you see is all the negative stuff. But in particular, Broskandar, in the story that he has with Waver in Fate Zero, encourages the young lad to live with passion.
Right.
And to basically to approach every situation with enjoyment.
Yeah.
Enjoyment is essentially a state that Iskandar or Broskandar embodies.
Right.
So if you're going to approach a situation, approach it with that joy so that you can tap into the secret of life itself, essentially. And this is just one of the many things that he has in Fate Zero that are wise, deep words. So I recommend watching that show if you haven't yet.
And I would say the fact that someone like Broskandar said this makes it way more powerful than if someone else had said it, right? Because a lot of times something like this can be taken out of context, or it can be taken to mean well, I should just do whatever's easy, or or something like that. But in Fate Zero, Broskandar was absolutely the opposite of that. He was trying to challenge himself and do all those things that people would say was crazy, but not just to do those things, but do it with a smile.
Yeah.
So
Next one is a very near and dear character to my heart, especially. I know Jacob really cares about him as well.
everyone loves this character.
Everyone loves
but
this guy.
You want to grow up to be this guy.
I want to grow up to be this guy. It's Uncle Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And his quote that, in particular, I would say you could spend a day just reading quotes from him. So I had to pick one, and this one I took is actually one of the less popular ones. It's that it is important to draw wisdom from different places. If you take it from only one place, it becomes rigid and stale. This is when he's talking to Zuko in Bitter Work about the 4 nations and the 4 elements, and trying to help Zuko become a more balanced individual. And I take this to be something that goes beyond just the simple words that he's saying. Drawing your education, drawing your input, drawing your truth, so to speak, drawing everything that you can from multiple sources is extremely important, because one of the things that's very common, I would say nowadays, we have a lot of people that are just suckling from one specific source, and anything else that combats that or goes against that completely throw away entirely. And this wisdom from Iroh goes and hits me in particular very close to home, because with kind of drawing wisdom from places in particular, you have to be kind of observant and stuff. But this idea of becoming rigid and stale is something I totally can identify with from being back in a time where my opinions of life were very much my thing that informed my identity. And since then, that has become something else entirely. So because I don't hold on to those as tightly as my identity, I'm able to draw from different sources, and it's huge. So if we can learn this in the world, this could stop a lot of division and a lot lot of our connectivity issues with other people.
Life's just easier, when you do that. This next one, so anytime you talk about like words of wisdom in anime, or you have to mention this guy. Like if Bro Skandar's on here, you have to mention this guy, and that is of course Kamina.
Yep.
And again, with Kamina, there are a bunch of amazing lines that
so
can be
good.
said.
Yes.
And this is one that is a personal favorite of mine, but is not one of the more popular ones. Like, who the hell do you think I am? Or, kick reason to the curb. And
don't
do the
believe
impossible.
Don't
believe in yourself. Believe in the me that believes in you, or believe in the you that believes in yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
This one is, don't be distracted by the what ifs, should haves, and if onlys. The one thing you choose for yourself, that is the truth of your universe.
Yeah.
And a saying like this, put in something like Gurren Lagann, right? It has a lot more oomph because you can see a manifested reality based around these words, right? But just in life in general, your perspective shapes your reality.
Yeah, it does.
So, and I love that he says the one thing you choose for yourself. The idea that, like, you know how there's the saying you can do anything?
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's like, okay, is that really true?
No, it's not true.
No. But there's an alternate saying for that, which is you can do anything, but you can't do everything.
Right. You have to choose a thing.
Right. Choose. And then your reality will shape around that. And the thing is, this can be for the positive or the negative.
Yep.
Choose, and at the point in the story, talking about it because there's a choice that needs to be made.
Yep.
So
very big one.
Yeah.
And in particular, the reason why I like this one a lot is that it starts at a negative, but it doesn't end with a negative. It's saying it's giving you a don't be distracted by the what ifs, the should haves, and the if onlys, which is honestly what I've seen a lot of, primarily a lot of people that have hit adulthood. They stumble into this and they're like, if only I'd done this in high school.
Right.
I should have this. What if this had happened? And all these theoreticals that really don't mean anything because the past is dead.
Right.
The
all
one
you have
thing,
is now.
Right. The one thing, then it goes into the positive. It says the one thing you choose for yourself, that is the truth of your universe. And it puts the power in your hands. It says, okay, this is your time. Choose for yourself. And that's going to be the truth of your universe. That's what your entire world is going to basically wrap around, is that one choice. And it's not saying that you're limited to the one choice. If you make the one choice, then that's it. You're screwed forever. But that choice determines your truth. So if you're wanting to change the truth of your universe, there you go. Change your choice. And if you're having trouble being distracted by the what ifs, the should haves, if onlys, it means it's time to make a choice on some specific things. So it's pretty crazy. Good stuff, Kamina.
This is one that this character's wacky, but I absolutely love her, and the show is amazing.
And you are not going to be able to guess what this character
you won't.
is.
If you can see this coming, then props to you.
Yeah.
But in Toradora,
Toradora,
a romantic comedy,
right?
There's a character called Minori Kushieda.
Yes.
And she
oftentimes
will have these crazy sayings that oftentimes will be too wacky to really be taken seriously or to be, or at least to be quotable. Even though you can discern the nuggets of wisdom in what she says, you gotta peel back the layers a bit. But this one is probably my favorite. I can't think of any others that compete really.
Yeah.
And this is at a part where she basically is thanking, the main character Ryuji for how he's helping her friend out with a bunch of stuff. And he's like, yeah, I mean, come on, those are all that's little stuff. That's no big deal. She's like, no, it's the no big deal things that matter the most.
Yeah.
And that's the dub. I think in the sub she says, it doesn't mean, he says like, it doesn't really mean anything, and she's like, and yet it means everything,
Right. In those moments in particular, you're actually informed a lot about Minori's character, but this line takes a lot when you bring it in that context into the real life, essentially, where you realize that you are responding to people that are essentially thanking you with the, it's no big deal. You can sometimes trick yourself in your head to be like, no, really, it is no big deal to you. but the
Right.
separation that's almost never the case for
them,
others,
yeah.
for them in particular.
Yep.
And it is in the little things, it is in the small choices, the everyday, daily little things
Right.
that mean far more than the grand once a year, once a lifetime decisions.
Right. And this is in the positive and negative.
Yes.
A lot of the times the whole idea of, like say with the Communist quote, the one thing you choose, that thing is you keep choosing it again and again over the course of your day or,
Or your life. Yeah.
Yeah, or your life or whatever. So those little things, they can't be understated.
Yeah.
Those things when like you're setting out to do something, you're like, yeah, this is my goal, like eating healthy or something like that. It's not the time when you completely splurge. It always starts with that little thing of like, this little thing doesn't really matter. I'll just sort of sneak that in there, and then it turns into something more than that.
And the same thing in the positive, when you decide, you know what, I'm going to write that book. It's those days where you decide, I'm going to write 15 words.
Right. Or I'm just going to write today.
I'm just going to write today, exactly. Yeah. Making those little steps and having those things that are no big deal end up being the things that matter the most, especially when you look back and things with your 2020 hindsight vision.
Right.
You realize, oh my gosh, this did not start with the big decision. It started with the little things there.
Yeah.
So
smiling, saying please, thank you, all those things that you might think
tip your waiter or waitress, guys.
Yeah. Yes.
Come on. All right. Next one is from one of our favorite characters.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
He is the embodiment of the contradiction. He holds so much wisdom, but he's a total delightful scumbag at heart.
Yes.
It's Reagan, best sensei
from Mob Psycho
100. And his quote is, don't focus on the negatives. Don't suppress yourself. You're the one who holds the key to maximizing your potential. And the crazy thing is he doesn't say this to Mob.
He doesn't. He says it to Mob's brother.
Yep.
If you've seen the show, Mob is the powerful psychic, and his brother isn't. Doesn't have anything, and that's a sore spot. And he says it to him, and I think that's so amazing because oftentimes we'll look at other people and we'll be like, wow, look at how gifted they are. Look at what they have. All of this stuff and all those things that you want but don't have.
Yeah.
But it's like no. Don't focus on that. You've got everything you need. Focus on what you can do, yourself.
Right. And the idea of you holding a key basically denotes a visual of you having something that can unlock something else. Meaning that you don't own the potential yet. It still requires you a choice to go out and unlock it.
Right, you can go grab it.
And one of the things with that is that requires a little bit of risk. Because there's this scary thing about opening doors. There's this scary thing about going to the place where you don't know what's going to be on the other side of that choice. But you do it anyway. And by choosing, this quote in particular, we're kind of wanting to show how a lot of these quotes can start off with a negative thing, but show you where the positive thing is in this. Because it's also telling you the conditions for when the positive needs to be implemented. So it's saying if you notice you're focusing on the negatives, if you notice you're suppressing yourself, realize internally, recognize that you hold the key to maximizing your potential. And it's something very cool in context for the show as well.
Yeah, focus is huge. Just like if you're riding a bike, where you're looking, that's where you'll end up going.
Yeah. This next one is from an also new favorite character of ours. He's amazing. We
couldn't not have him on this list.
Yeah, we couldn't. It's All Might, guys. All Might is one of the titular characters in My Hero Academia. Probably one of the characters that makes the show go from good to great, along with Deku, of course. But this is a quote that it means a lot because if you take it in the context, we're in a world of superheroes. We're in a world of people with superpowers. And it's easy to kind of think that this can't be applied out of that context.
Right, yeah.
But this is the quote of, when there's nothing to be gained, rising to the challenge at those times is surely the mark of a true hero. And when you think about what's being said here, it's saying that when there's nothing for you, and there's nothing in it for you, and there's a challenge in front that's not going to gain you anything, but you still rise to that challenge, in that moment, that's the mark of someone who's basically on the right tracks. Someone who's a good person, someone who's a true hero.
Someone that can be a hero even if they don't have superpowers.
Right.
The idea that can be someone that other people can look up to and be like, man, I want to be like that person. That would be so awesome if I could be like them.
Yeah. Yeah. If anything, I want to take this out of context a little bit into another superhero show.
Oh.
But in One Punch Man, we have Mumen Rider, who basically does this exact same thing at a very specific part in the show. I don't want to spoil too much about it because it's probably one of the greatest things of One Punch Man Season 1. That's the mark of a true hero. It's also an example of someone with no powers, essentially.
Right.
But if you take this instance here, and you do something specifically because there's a challenge in front that is either inhibiting, someone else or something else or you or what have you, but there's nothing in it just for selfish gain, and you make that, rise to it. You don't shrink back, fall back, or just wait for someone else to handle it. Props to you, because you're making a difference in the world. Even if it's a very small one, you're still making a difference.
Yeah, even if you don't see the difference.
Right.
Yeah, because other people will see it.
Yeah. There's lots of great stories out there I've heard of where people will tell me about there's just this random person that did this act of goodness or kindness towards me, and we never know who that person was. But that just happens. And
that can change a life.
It can change a life. It can restore people's faith in humanity. And it's something that we should all strive to do on a daily basis. Yes. Now, this one, no one expected, because it's from the greatest hero of all time.
That's right, the font of wisdom himself.
Yes,
and this is serious, by the way. We are serious about this one.
Mm-hmm.
That's Shiro Emiya.
Shiro Emiya.
That's
you heard it right.
Captain Obvious
from the
himself.
Fate series. Yep.
This line is just
because you're correct doesn't mean you're right. Wow,
this
wisdom.
Is huge.
This is a big deal.
I know it sounds like so stupid and everything, but it is actually immensely important. Because, so
we're serious,
often,
really.
and we really are serious, especially in my life. I know that there are so often times where I'll think like, that person's wrong and I'm right. Like, I know they're wrong and I know I'm right. But the idea is that that's not all that matters.
That's not all that matters. One of the things that's being said here is that if you are factually correct about something, if you have, empirical data supporting what you say, and someone else is stating something that is wrong, it doesn't give you the right to do whatever it takes in order to bring your correctness onto them.
Right.
Now, this could be taken a whole bunch of context, and we're not bringing in context into this in particular. We're just trying to let people know that the most important thing in this world is not being right.
Yeah.
One of the things that Jacob and I in particular have had to learn over the course of many years is that when we have disagreements with people, when we have some sort of conflict of beliefs or ideologies, or even just even in our discussion theories, at the end of episodes and stuff, just because one of us might be correct doesn't mean we have the right to ruin friendship, connection, all these other things for that. Now, obviously, there's some, probably exception to the rule in here. But the point is don't discount this just because it's a very silly, almost...
Exactly. Almost laughable.
Almost laughable line.
It is laughable.
Oh, it's totally laughable.
But there's something to learn there, too, because I remember growing up, my parents would have... They'd tell me this again and again, that basically just because you're right, that doesn't mean you can be a dick about it.
Right.
That means you're wrong. Like that,
right.
Even if you're right, that means you're wrong, because that's not what you should do.
One of my favorite heroes on the internet, Philip DeFranco, says, if you have people who are being stupid and saying stupid stuff, then just let them be stupid and let the stupid basically reveal itself. You don't have to be the bastion defending people from the stupidity of people yelling out the wrong thing. So when we focus on other things like understanding others, like connection with others, those are the things that end up superseding the value of being right. And I think that Shiro Emiya in this story doesn't go that deep. He's a very typical potato protagonist when it comes down to things.
It's the simple that holds to their simpleness,
exactly,
very, very strongly,
exactly,
and that's fine. And we're not going to tell you the context of this quote because that would be a little bit spoilery. But it's important.
Just because you're correct doesn't mean you're right.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that was our seven
Pearls of wisdom.
From anime. Yep. Yeah. We're gonna move on into the Q&A now. And first question is from Rage's Legend. What are your thoughts on theatrical plays and musicals? I like them. Yeah. I am a big Phantom of the Opera fan.
Yes.
Have you watched any that you really liked? And what do you think of the medium in general? I would like to experience more of the medium.
Yeah, I haven't really watched any other than like old school musicals or whatever, and those don't really count.
Yeah, so if anything, we would like your recommendations. What are some musicals or theatrical plays in particular that you would recommend?
Yeah.
The more popular, the better. That way they're probably being played, all over the country.
I've always wanted to see Wicked. And they announced just recently, and you're gonna groan, but yes, absolutely, I am excited for this, a Frozen musical.
Oh my god. All right, next question's from Patricia D. Does Caleb have that one show that he fanboys over like crazy in the same level or almost the same as Jacob does over Haruhi?
I'm actually very curious.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if Jacob fanboys as hard. I fanboy harder about this show than Jacob does over Haruhi, I think. Because it's Avatar: The Last Airbender. But the thing is if I had to say what's my, second or third highest fanboying show, I wouldn't be able to tell you. The show that I fanboy over the most, like crazy over, that I've introduced probably over 50 people to, I'm talking about 50 people that I know. 50 people that I have had physical interaction with. This is not counting any people that have discovered it because of our channel or Discord or what have you. Ever since 2009, I've been just shoving this show in everyone's faces. Yeah. I love it so much. I think it's one of the greatest shows of all time.
Yeah, so, if not the. And we watched it so long ago when it was for the first time. We've watched it so many times that we might not fanboy about it as much now.
Right.
Yeah.
But I still do. If anyone ever asks me what are your thoughts on what makes a show great, or what is the greatest show, or what's the greatest animated show, or what have you, you'll just wait and see. All right, next question is, what is the favorite or most memorable scene or moment in Hunter x Hunter? Let's do one for each of us. I think that it's hard to ignore those two fights that each came to our head almost instantly when it said this. The funny thing is that when I think about those scenes in particular, we're talking about the Uvogin Kurapika fight and the Hisoka and Gon fight.
Well, I would say that the Kurapika Uvogin fight absolutely trounces the
I think it's better too.
Hisoka fight.
But I just wanted to be different because I remembered those scenes initially, but I really liked the cliffside scene with Gon and Killua when they go back to meet Gon's I think it's aunt.
Oh yeah,
that is probably one of my favorite.
Yeah, that was
moments.
A really good one. That was good.
If I had to pick the most kind of the scene that instantly comes to mind, it had to be one of those two fights. But the most memorable one in terms of where it gets me is that cliff scene. I really appreciate that one.
I would also say the part where there's the mourning, and I'm not going to say what character it is, and just in case people haven't seen Hunter x Hunter on here, but when a certain group of characters mourn the one character, that was a big deal for me because that was pretty good. I did not expect that, and that elevated not only the characters doing the mourning, but also the person that was being mourned.
Right,
loads in my mind.
Yeah. Next question is from Lex the Graceful Rival. Are there any settings that you want to see more of in anime? Yes. I have mentioned that I would like to see generally the more kind of fantasy setting. I really like the fantasy settings that tend to have some elements of kind of real life blended kind of history. So where fantasy and real life history kind of meld together. Gotcha. That's why I kind of liked the Fate stuff, even though that was set in modern time.
Okay. I would say I want to see more stuff that's at sea. Because that's
but not One Piece.
Because I loved Black Lagoon, and I think that even then with what Black Lagoon did, there's a whole lot more, because when you see like some place at sea, some tropical island or whatever, they can be absolutely gorgeous.
Totally.
So yeah.
Yeah. What is your favorite isekai anime? Mine would be between ReZero and Konosuba.
Konosuba.
Yeah, I would have to say Konosuba as well.
Konosuba is just great.
I think that Konosuba goes into genius levels of comedy. When you think about some of the jokes that they set up, particularly in certain moments from the first season, there's a couple in the second season too that are pretty incredible as well. But it's some next level stuff, and I think if anything, there's a lot of people that won't watch it because of the excessive amounts of fan service. But this is the one show for me where the fan service literally did not bother me because of how good the show was.
I was so surprised.
Yeah. And finally, in the anime community, Erased is often considered to have one of the worst endings among popular anime. Do you agree with that sentiment? Why or why not? Oh, I've heard shows that had way worse endings for the anime.
Right.
Like Soul Eater. The anime's ending pissed off so many people.
It did.
I think Erased is one of those ones that's more recent. So it's not really one of the worst in my opinion. No, it's just one of the most recent endings of a popular anime that was disliked by a large portion of people. I would say ReZero's ending is garbage compared to Erased's ending. Because I liked Erased's ending.
I did too.
Yeah.
Like I feel like they could have done maybe more with it, but I wasn't particularly upset by it. If anything, it seemed like it was a subversion of audience expectations.
Yes.
That was the real issue.
Yeah,
but they delivered on a lot of the things that they set up.
Right. This is kind of the thing we talked about with The Last Jedi. If you're going to talk about how the ending was bad, if you basically put into the ending being bad as being person A ended up with person B and not person C as your reasoning for that, that's pretty weak.
Like not that can't be a reason and be a valid one, but usually you should
come up with a better one than that. So no, I don't agree with that sentiment, and that's the gist of it basically. Jenny asks, how do you write a flawed main character without alienating readers? Oh,
is there an ideal flawed redeeming trait ratio for reader engagement?
Oh,
so I would.
Okay. How would you lead off with this one?
I would say if you want to figure out how to do this, watch a silent voice, or read a silent voice. Because here's the thing: they start out with a main character that you absolutely hate,
that's one of those characters that pushed so far into the flaw category that they did alienate a lot of people.
Right, but the way that they were able to get around that is they made it so that it was one at the beginning. Two, it was things that the main character did when they were a kid.
They had a time skip.
They had a time skip, and they had the time skip after they realized how awful what they did was, and also got some sort of poetic justice that wasn't really justice.
Well, it was also redemptive. The whole story was redemptive.
The whole story was based around that. Exactly.
Right. One of the things that you basically need to focus on is if you have a character that's flawed. One of the ways that there was a flawed main character that alienated a ton of people was The Legend of Korra. Korra, as a show, had a bunch of production problems, and we're not going to bring that up here, but one of the things that Legend of Korra didn't do well, especially in the beginning, was character development. And as long as you're focused on character development, and I mean focused, like it is in your top 3 to 5 things involved with your story, hopefully in top 3, then you're going to be okay. I think that you can have a really flawed character, and even though you are going to by definition alienate some people no matter how good your story is, as long as you have that moment of like people going and they go, oh, I didn't even notice the character development, but oh my gosh, I suddenly love this character. What you're actually doing is you're having this genius moment where they've been growing to love them over time, or go from like low-key hate to like sorta not hate, okay, neutral, and then okay, I kind of like, I love them now. There's a lot of things you can do there. Giving them some contradictions is also really good. Jacob's thing with a silent voice is good. If you want to make a character that's really gutsy like that, you need to actually bring about the empathy of your audience. If you do not do that, they will just hate them, and they'll feel like the character development is forced just to make them feel for them.
Exactly.
So engage the empathy, especially if the character is really flawed.
Yeah. One of the big problems that I saw with things like Korra or, say, Kylo Ren in the recent Star Wars movies is that people would see them as being flawed, right? Because they had their flaws, but they would be like, why am I spending so much time with this flawed character right now? Because we love seeing stories of characters overcoming flaws, whatever the flaws may be, right?
Yeah.
But you still have to enjoy the moment by moment story.
Yes.
So you need to make the flaws apparent so that the reader or the viewer knows this is something that's going to get worked on, and the character knows that this is a problem, right?
It's just like any other story. If you extrapolated the flawed character to be a flawed story and stuff, people don't want to stick around with a flawed story for very long.
Right.
So you need to start showing the trends of its developing into a good story or a good character.
And again, A Silent Voice does an amazing job with that.
Yeah. T Overhaul asks, what is your favorite setting theme in anime? Well, I've already kind of said that, but if you had to choose my favorite one right now, I really love the fantasy theme, but if I had to choose one right now, I'm really loving the sports kind of setting theme, because the way they're doing it in Haikyuu is incredible. It's almost perfect. It's making me want to make my own Ultimate Frisbee anime.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
For me, it would be the isekai that isn't an isekai, where basically it's someone being pulled into another world where they are unfamiliar with the things. They're the fish out of water, but it's not necessarily getting pulled into a fantasy world. Black Lagoon is an example of someone going into another world, even though it's not a different world, and the story is all about them coping with the differences and all that stuff.
Yep, it's a good one. The example would be the Middle Ages or Spirit World or the future. Also, if there's a setting theme you haven't seen, what would you like to see from an anime? I already answered that in a previous one about what I would want to see more of. I want to see more of a history of the real world blended with fantasy.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Sen Ojino. How do you prevent burnout from writing, especially if you've been working on the same story for months?
Okay. Burnout happens. It's a thing.
You can't prevent it.
You can't really prevent it.
No.
The way I would say that you prevent this from happening is, one, you de-stress regularly, but also write quickly. The burnout that I've seen happens usually because I don't feel like I'm making progress.
Right.
To quote Sun Tzu, he says the war is expensive. War campaigns are expensive, so win quickly. So
it's so genius, but it's like, wait. That's too easy. That has to be more than that. No, really, that's it.
You can write quickly if you really put your nose to the grindstone. Mm-hmm. Write badly at the beginning.
Yes.
Get it done so that you have an actual milestone where you can say, I'm working towards this goal that is worth it to me to push through the tears and the pain and the blood and the sweat.
Right.
And then you can get to that point. You're like, all right, cool. You got to that, and then go on to the next step. But burnout is a thing, so make sure you stay consistent and
set realistic goals, write badly first, and get a buddy to encourage you.
Enjoy the process. And get somebody to encourage you, kick you in the butt, whatever. Mm-hmm.
Number 2, also from Sen Ojino, is, this may have been asked before, but how did you first discover anime? I had a friend who sent me Bleach AMVs back in 2008 and was like, you should check this show out sometime. And I'm like, all right, this seems kind of weird, kind of cool, kind of meh. And I ended up watching Bleach with him.
For me, it was very similar because you got me into Bleach. But before that, it was Naruto. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, I'd already watched Airbender, so I was up for the idea of watching a cartoon. But my best friend was like, hey, just watch this. And I was like, okay. So I checked it out, and I was like, all right. I enjoyed it.
All right. Sen Ojino's third question is, are you okay with fan fiction being written about your stories/books? If so, would you actually read any of them?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would consider that a point of pride.
Yeah, I think any author, if you ask them personally, like on a face-to-face thing, if they would be okay with fan fiction being written, they're either not going to care because they think they're never going to see it. Right. But if you're asking them, like, is it okay if they're like, yeah, you do you. Yeah. Go do your thing. It's you. Like, yeah, it's fine. I mean, they might get a problem if you're trying to make money off of it, but like,
Sure.
it's fan fiction.
Exactly.
It's not.
Yeah.
We're not worried about that.
Yeah.
But like, would we actually read any of them? Here's the thing. So yes.
Because
would
how could we not? Like, how much we would read.
How much we would read. That's
Yeah,
the thing.
like,
Whether or not we would finish it.
Yeah. And
Whether or not we would do more than just kind of skim it.
and whether or not, like, it's like, okay, is this like smut, or is this like, like a more tame fanfic, things like that.
Yeah. There's some clarifications.
Yeah, but I would consider it to be like that is one of the marks that I will consider to be a success as an author, is that people writing fanfics.
All right, next questions. If you were both put into a horror movie, which of you would die first and why? Well, I'm going to claim that you would die first.
Okay.
Because I run faster than you.
Okay. I would claim that it would actually not be something of us, one of us dying first or not, is that since we're smart people, we would determine that actually, since most of the time people die in horror movies when they go off alone, we'd be like, all right, we'll just stick together. And two of us can probably beat the one person that's coming after us.
Right.
Unless
Unless it's one of those supernatural ones, then we're both screwed.
Yeah, and then we'd both die at the same time.
So sure, there you go. That's the thing, is we would probably either both survive
Or both die.
Or both die. If it was a question of who would run the fastest,
He
I
would run
win,
faster.
because I can run faster.
Unless I managed to like break his leg first.
Oh, this is a great one. Final question. These are all from Senojino, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your questions. I love these. If you had to choose one of the 4 Discord factions, which would you choose and why? Now, before you answer, people on here might not know what we're talking about. Recently, for our Discord, we added in these aesthetic factions of sorts that are basically like the Harry Potter houses of Hogwarts,
But anime.
But for anime. And they're really, really silly sounding names intentionally to capture some of the tropes of different types of fans you'll find there. And they are as follows. We have, and these are really ridiculous names, so you can laugh all you want. The Antagonist Ascendancy. We have the Waifu Warriors, the Shonen Junkies, and the League of Lollies.
Yes.
So those 4 groups represent different
aspects of the anime community.
Of the anime fandom, yes, exactly. And if we had to choose one of those 4, should we just say like 3, 2, 1, go?
No, you say yours.
Okay, because I'm probably a shonen junkie.
Oh,
if it came down to it, see, here's the thing. The reason why I say junkie is it's kind of the thing of like where I want that hit of a thing that isn't good for me. Like, so here's the thing. Like, listen very closely. My point is that I've been burned out by a lot of shonen in the past, but I still want that.
Issues.
I still want that. That feeling.
Because you've seen Haikyuu and Hunter x Hunter and My Hero Academia and JoJo's
and even some of the ones that I didn't like as much. But the thing is shonen appeal to something really kind of childlike within me, and I love that. So if it came down to it, no, I wouldn't go for the League of Lollies. I wouldn't go for the Antagonist Ascendancy. Waifu Warriors, there's some merit there, but I would lean Shonen Junkies, probably with like a 65% margin. Pretty heavily, I would say.
Gotcha.
What about you?
Well, I need to say that this is not the one I would choose, but when it first started out, the League of Lollies didn't have very many members, so I helped hype it up a bit.
Yes, you did.
And now they're doing okay, so I feel like I'd be free to choose one of the other 4 or other 3. So I would probably choose the Waifu Warriors.
Yeah. Who is your waifu that you would be the protector of? Haruhi.
No.
Yeah.
No. It would actually if anything,
Nagato.
Possibly Nagato. Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jacob has a real passion for the disappearance of Haruhi.
You haven't seen that movie. You need
it's really good.
To check it out.
Also, if you're not in our Discord and you have any sort of Patreon support with us, you get access to that.
Yeah.
So get on that. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a link, you were probably sent an email once you joined our Patreon, and that link expires after 24 hours. So you just message us on our Patreon, say like, hey, I need a Discord invite link, and we'll hit you up.
Yep.
Little Duck asks, what should you do if you can't settle on the type of protagonist you want for your story? So what we've learned from anime is you can just do a self-insert character.
But how about we give good advice?
But here's the way you can make it work.
Okay.
You do a self-insert character, and you use that as a baseline, and then you add one thing, and then you add another thing, and you add a third thing, and then you make a couple contradictions on those things, and there you go. You have a basic protagonist. Because if you can't settle on the type, you just pick no type.
Well, what I would do
and you just think about what's
is
important.
I would say, what kind of story do I want to tell?
That works too.
And then basically from there, just come up with some protagonist that goes along those lines.
Yeah, it sounds like what they're saying is they have the story already, but they have like 3 protagonist choices that they're trying to choose between.
Right.
My thing is just say scrap all that protagonist stuff. Go down to the base, boring potato protagonist and just start putting building blocks on until you're like, oh, don't add anymore. That's good. And you have to be very slow with it at that point.
A lot of times
I like your idea too.
And a lot of times you can discover a character best by just writing a bunch with them, and then like a lot of times first draft is just to figure out the character.
That's true. That's very true. And the final question is from Ruby Trash. Does Jacob's book have an official title yet?
It does indeed.
Yes, it does.
Battle Lines.
Order soon on Amazon.com.
Yeah,
and our website,
yeah.
probably. But if you haven't checked out anything to do with Jacob's book, make sure you're on the Discord and you can go chat with him about it in the Jacob's Book channel. I know he'd love to chat about that with you.
Yeah.
And that's the end of our questions, guys.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you so much for catching up with us on our podcast. If you want to ask us any questions for the next podcast, leave them in the comments down below.
Yes, do that.
And we will make sure to get your question answered. If you find that your question hasn't been answered or we missed one, know that we do kind of condense the questions down to the more kind of serious ones, or one that's already, that hasn't been answered before. If we get like the same question, like, why haven't you watched the Monogatari series or something like that?
Generally, we don't answer the why haven't you watched those ones because it's, the answer is largely the same. There's a lot of shows to watch.
There's a lot of shows to watch, exactly. But guys, thank you so much for catching up with us, and we'll see you again next time. But until then, Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all in the next one.